welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be the last video in the How I Revised for my GCSE series, where I'm going to cover the remaining 5 subjects which I took for my GCSEs, and I'm only combining them into one video because I pretty much did the same thing for all of them, and it was a pretty basic technique, so I think it will be a short video even with them combined. So I thought there's no point having sort of like 5 1-minute videos, so I thought I would just combine them into one. So the subjects which I took were biology, chemistry, physics, food tech and computer science. In biology, chemistry and physics I did Edexcel International and I got A stars in those. In food tech I did AQA I think and I got A9, and in computer science I did Cambridge International and I got an A star. And so yeah, I was very happy with all of those grades obviously. So I feel like this technique really works, which is why I thought I would share it even though it's pretty basic. So the first thing which I would do for all of them is make either typed or handwritten notes. That actually varied on the subject. For science I typed them, and I think for computer science I also typed them, but food tech I had handwritten. Don't really know why, it just happened that way and that's what I did. So yeah, I just made the notes after every lesson. I didn't wait until we finished a topic or anything. After every lesson I would summarise it, so it never built up to a level where it was just like, oh my word, I have so much to type up or whatever. I do it after every lesson, or if I had too much homework or other stuff to do, I'd do it at the end of every week. I never let it get past a weekend without having typed up my notes for that week, and I just found that really helpful to make sure that it never got on top of me. And also it meant that I was prepared for any unit tests, because I already had all of the resources that I needed to revise for it, because I'd made the notes as I went along. So the way that I then memorised these notes was through the blurting technique. So yeah, I would read it out loud, the topic. This is the first time I'm learning it, by the way. I would read it out loud, not throw away the paper, get it out my sight, then I would write out as much of it as I could remember, then add anything that I'd missed, and then I would try and write it out again with everything that I've missed, and then I would do something completely different. It might be a different subject, I might then have a break, it depends how long I've been doing other stuff for and how long it took, and then I would write it out again to see if it was still in my memory, and then I would leave longer and longer gaps until eventually I'd get it sort of after like 3 or 4 days of not going over it. So yeah, I found the blurting technique really helpful for all of these subjects, because I think most of them are quite content heavy, including, well, I mean, apart from really chemistry and physics, but even those have some content which is important to get spot on. The other thing that is really helpful is explaining the content to other people, or I like to explain it to my dog, so she knows a lot about physics apparently. It just makes sure that you've got the understanding well enough to help someone else to understand it, or, I mean, I know my dog won't understand it, but to try and put it in a way that you're thinking about whether someone else would understand it if they could, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So explaining it to other people is always a good way of teaching it, and it also means that you've prepared it almost. Like, if you were doing it to another person, you'd have prepared it, which again is helping you learn it in yourself. So I try and teach it to her without using my notes, so that I had to come up with the content and retrieve it, rather than just reading it and telling her that this is the process. So yeah, that's always helpful. Another thing which I did was I put post-it notes on my wall with any, like, I did it for the physics formulae, I did it for, I did have it at one point for the compound ions for chemistry, but then I got them so far in my head I took them down. I did it for the vitamins and food tech and minerals. And yeah, any heavy content I put on my walls, so then I'd get up and I'd sort of be brushing my hair while reading about vitamins, and it's just the repetition is so important. So yeah, make sure you repeat going over this content as much as you possibly can for the content heavy subjects, because it makes it so much less stressful when you get to exam season if you know most of the content already and you just need to refresh it in your mind. As you can probably guess, my last tip for these subjects is past papers and practice questions. For food tech, I was on new spec, so obviously there weren't many past papers. Well, there was no past papers, there was 2 specimens, I think. And so obviously I did those, but they were my mock and my year 10 mock, so I did them in school. But I had a textbook and I did every single question in the textbook as practice, because that was less than I'd probably have done for the past papers if there'd been any. So you can't really use the excuse of just because it's new spec I don't have any past papers to do. For most subjects, the old spec ones would be relevant, so for science I probably would have done, and computer science, but food tech, apparently the spec had changed so much there was hardly any points, so I didn't do it for that. But past papers, yep. Use the mark schemes, they're always really helpful, especially for biology and computer science, I found, because some things which seem really complicated, the mark schemes are really nice for. So if you learnt those, I don't know, 5 points about, let's think of an example. Sensors for computer science, if you learnt those 5 points about sensors, you got the marks, even if they were completely unfluent and you basically bullet pointed them, then you can do it. The other thing with all of these subjects, I think apart from food tech, you can bullet point, apart from, unless you have the 6 markers in biology, which I did have, you can bullet point the rest of it, which is helpful, and it also, apparently it makes the markers like you more, is what some of my teachers said, because they don't have to read all the waffle between. So if you know the mark scheme, just write the mark scheme down, don't waffle on and on and on. I was a devil for doing that, I would do that so much. Examiners' reports can also be helpful as a guideline for what people tended to get wrong, but I didn't tend to use those that much. The mark schemes I found much more helpful. So that is it for the tips for the final 5 subjects. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And I hope to see you soon. Bye!